Now, let's cut to the chase, because I'm gonna be vague about this, but I left them because I wanted them to be able to see this issue, and I particularly made the other video in order to see it, but it's not just them, it's him too, really. Like, call it cringe, call it selfish, I just want the best for everyone. And my motivation now might, like, to double clarify on that, might come off as extremely selfish, because my motivation first is about my stories. And reminder, I gave up SM64 because I relied too much on other people as characters in my story. So I have since wanted to avoid that kind of interaction, because it just leads to people getting distressed because they don't understand how passionate I am, and or want to shame me for it, or just want to leave me alone, basically. I was in a group recently, a couple months going. I was in that group for a while, and I was also in another group for, like, the map stuff. Both of which were full of most of the same people. 3 of those people left. For varying reasons. Both groups, actually. Both groups that they left. Those 3 people, they left both groups. Completely out of a desire to want to leave people behind that were mad and stuff. Maybe they had server dramas in a completely separate location. These were groups, not servers. So, they were probably in different servers and got extremely stressed and stuff, and understandable. But I was in these groups for a while, and in one of them, I'm still in them, in that one, because most of the people in there do not pose much of a problem. The other one, though, the model porting group, yeah, the map porting group is fine. The model porting group, though, ugh. As I just explained, I'm passionate about these things. When I show my passion, I don't exactly want that to go away, and I will explain that is my passion. And that hasn't changed. I'm still that. Because my interest in this thing is not dependent upon other people liking that thing to the same degree that I do. That's how SM64 was. And those people, my love on this thing depended on other people loving this same thing. That is SM64 bloopers and blooper making. Be it serious or funny or comedic or heartbreaking. But those people left, as I've explained more than once. So, because they left, I then had no... Remember, I relied on them too much, so I then followed suit, as it had interest more in 3D models and Splatoon. My like for Splatoon doesn't depend so much on other people being there. Even if I were the only person alive, I guess, to see these stories that I've made, that would be great. It's exactly the same mentality I use for YouTube. If I want to put up stuff that I would want to see. Even if I'm the only person to view it, that doesn't matter. I want to put up content that I want to see. When I'm interested in a YouTuber or a particular viewer or something, for a while, I may go around and see what kind of content they've made. And usually I'll be more interested if that personality maybe, has gone around to other channels and portrayed themselves outward. So, sometimes I'm interested, if I'm very, very interested in a channel, and I was with a couple, I will see if they've had a past, if they've, posted content that's, different. So, these rants and stuff, I'd appreciate if the behind the scenes were, well, a bit of the behind the scenes, I guess, were more into the atmosphere than just promoted as a thing. So, there's also another thing. While I don't mind jokes on that level, I'm sometimes guilty of making these same jokes. However, I'm not the person to live in them like how most do. You might have noticed, or if not, that's fine, that my Twitter is quite lackluster in terms of meme content, self-deprecating content. It should be noted that I have hated the direction of Sonic games ever since 2010. Minus, Sonic Colors DS, but I guess that might have just been counted as late 2009, given that game probably was in development at that time. But I have hated the direction of Sonic games since that time because of their, either the story is rushed, or the characters are extremely juvenile to the point where I don't really want to care about them as much. I've been trying to prove a message by not buying their games. I don't want to support this direction. I really don't. It's not a direction that I want to support. So, but I've never been a particularly easy person when it comes to jokes. In terms of extremely juvenile stuff. I don't like a whole lot of typical cartoons. Call me cringy, call me edgy. I've been the person that usually gravitates to the more serious stuff, that gravitates to the more meaningful things. I don't live slapstick, meme, self-depressive, cynical humor. I really don't. I don't mind participating in it for like a little bit, or when someone is a close friend and they like that sort of humor. I'm not going to chastise you for liking that thing, but I'm just not that kind of person. How most of my generation is obsessed, for example, with SpongeBob, I see it as ridiculous. I even saw it as ridiculous at like really early ages. I remember there was an instance where when I was little I had to stay behind to like after school care because, well, like obviously a lot of kids do when their parents are like working and stuff. So at one point I remember I was quite young at the time, but everyone was getting together to watch a SpongeBob movie, and I was in the back corner, and I was trying very hard to just, like, ignore it, because at the time, and I probably would have been, like, 7 to 8 or something, like, maybe 8 or 9 years old or something. Even I found it at that age where it would have been perfect for me. Even I found it extremely childish and loud and obnoxious. I probably wouldn't have the words to describe it to you back then, but I just didn't like it. even though most of my generation now probably just revels in, joking around about it. And, like, if you like it and you have enjoyment in that sort of thing, that's fine. But, like, a number of the people in this model porting group were filled with that meme depressive humor. For a while those three people were still around, the group was balanced with at least a small, because one of them wasn't able to take jokes very easily. I think they were foreign, and were quite serious, and I could at least relate a little bit to that. And there were a couple of other, like, those three people tended to be like that from what I had seen of them. One of them was meme depressive. I used the term meme depressive is what I use to describe when I'll view a Twitter feed and it's just filled with this casualized mentality, and there are plenty of those versus stuff like mine where it's just me ranting about things and like being like actually speaking the truth, I guess. But a number of the people, once they left, that group then became filled with those meme depressive people, and they like dominated this group. And one of those people, a couple of those people probably, was friends with Fission. Probably still is. And this is gonna get controversial. And it's like, you probably wonder, why don't I put this on the other channel? It's like, well, that one just didn't work. And it was too vague. And yet here I'm still vague. But I've already mentioned that I think that, my opinion in the early part of this video, that I've heard words on the grapevine and they're not good. So I'm not totally hiding it now compared to there where I'm just like, oh, I'm scared, I don't know what to do. It's like, well, I'm still scared, but at least I'm actually saying something about it now, you know? I was in that model porting group for a while. I don't remember how I got added. Someone added me, and I was like, just perfect fit, because I data mined the game, I guess. And for a while, I've been getting the updates. And, like, even if, like, I imagine, like, even if you're not in this group, the files were still spread around enough so much that other people probably got a hold of them, but you probably got a hold of them through me, so you're welcome. Like, I'm walking on eggshells doing so, you realize? And, what I felt while I was in there is that even though I was doing it voluntarily, and that I haven't really stopped because I like Splatoon myself, but it kind of felt, and like, just to put this in a little bit, this is going to sound harsher than it really is, probably, and I won't blame you for thinking that, but it felt abusive. The relationship I was having in there, because of the dissonance between their motivations and mine, in that in the beginning I sort of agreed with them, and like, not that I've totally gone to the other extreme either, because the other extreme is also just as bad. But sort of like, I've taken feedback from both of the questionable, if they're really sides. And it's like, by distributing them the way I had done before is kind of dangerous towards the mentality I don't like. One of these people is working on something that I was working on as well. I'll give you a hint. No, I won't give you a hint. I'll let you decide what exactly that thing we were both working on was. Thanks, screensaver. But supposedly they were working on it, and I won't deny there are bits of it that they worked on. But by feeding these updates to this group, which I was intending to really put it out to everyone, but no one really views my Twitter. Twitter's also extremely dangerous for that kind of thing because it's not exactly I don't want it so public that we end up losing access to the stuff. Because it has happened before. Like, we only got the ability to dump the updates relatively recently. I don't want them starting to sniff it out and then suddenly we don't have access to updates anymore and stuff. That wouldn't be cool. And I know we're like really close to the end of the game's development, but God, at least let us continue to that point before we let them know that disaster's happening, you know? Especially if we still want some of the things that might be happening. What, there's things happening to the final Splatfest in the game? It's pretty obvious what they're doing. They've made edits to the killer whale and they've made it a weapon in the game. And they've also made like hyper bombs a thing. It's pretty obvious what they're doing for the final Splatfest. So I don't exactly want that flow to stop. So, like, I will continue dumping because I like Splatoon as a game, as a series. Me doing it I'm doing it voluntarily. So, it's not because I don't want to dump this stuff. It's the reason after that sentence. I don't want to dump this stuff if it's pointless. And that's the most vague way I can put it. What is the point of distributing something like that? Something that's really, really big, that could lead to bigger things, and then have it be all for nothing. That person, I talked with them a bit. I sent them promises, hopefully trying to motivate them, so then I could at least, you know, have some reason to give what I had. And then they just never responded at all, ever. I would tell them that I've got this thing. They would send back, okay, with a bunch of emojis, and that already doesn't give off a good sign because I don't use emoji in a lot of my, I don't remember using emoji at all on Twitter, on Discord, anywhere. I just find emoji dumb. I know they're an extension of emoticons, but I just use emoticons because they're much more fun. And I've even come up with a few new ones for myself too, like :J for a smirk, or :N for when I'm just sort of, why is this a happening thing? So, or my new one that I've been using a lot, :V, which I know is a bit of a frustration one for a lot of people, but the point is I like using faces more than I use emoji. And when I see emoji, my mind is already putting in a filter going, this is like half what like sarcastic, cynical people do. Not that everyone is like that. But of most of the instances I have seen, this is what I have been led to believe. Now, do not think I am thinking everyone does this. Who knows, if there is an individual out there who does use it in a smart way, I'm probably not going to mean you, but if I notice a repeated string of events, and this person was displaying that repeated string of events, that filter, this is a very eloquent way of explaining it, but their behavior ticked me off to a number of things I had noticed and observed in the past, and that I was suspicious and wary of. So, I wasn't... But, it wasn't just the emoji alone, it was a number of other things, as well as a couple weeks before I left that group, we had more than one argument where he couldn't get motivated for anything. Yes. He couldn't get motivated for anything. This thing that he kept saying he wanted to do, which was actually, my assumption, which was actually just a shut up tactic, if only just so we couldn't say anything more about it. I remember me and another individual tried to offer this person help. They were explaining, I'm so demotivated because of X and X, and this X and X, we realized and understood, and the other person who was helping me at the time, and probably them and one other person were the only two people in this Discord group. The group was close to full, so it was a large majority of other people who were this meme depressive behavior. These two people were probably the only ones who could understand my point of view when we were trying to explain how much we really liked these things. And as I've explained, the project is for my stories. I need to keep working on this project if I want these stories to come to light, because no other person's stories are going to entertain me. People like the animators make juvenile, cartoony-like stories, which I'm not interested in, so I've made my own stuff that I want to make, but unfortunately, I do not have the assets to do that, and unfortunately, I do not have all the skills, either, to make everything. I have a lot of skills, but I don't have all the skills to make what I want to make immediately. There's a lot of things that go into everything to make sure it would be desirable for me to use it. I don't want to use a piece of crap that I made in 2 minutes. I want to use something that I spent a lot of time and effort in making. Because if I want someone else to view my stories and then they go, oh yeah, I want to make that now. I want them to look at something that's good. At least somewhat, on a decent level. Not some drawing or something. Because, I can't draw Splatoon characters very well. But, we had an argument over this motivation thing, and they refused to listen. In fact, I think the first question he said that sparked off this argument was, how are you guys so motivated? I know, I get it. You guys like that jovial humor. You guys like being all nonsensical and stuff. Then you guys whine so much why there's drama in such a jovial, juvenile thing, even though that could happen in literally anything. Even dark and serious communities have drama queen incidents. It can literally happen anywhere. Just because something is lighthearted doesn't mean it's immune to people having discussions about it. It literally isn't. Any form of media is up for interpretation, criticism, and discussion. anything. Doesn't matter what tone it has at the start. So naturally, I explained my motivation. Like, you know, why I cared. Which is as simple and short and concise as, I've made these stories once and I can't tell them without these assets. I want to work hard to make this a reality. And even though this is easy for me to explain, it's not so easy in terms of getting others to be able to understand that. I've normally held off from explaining that kind of thing, call it a flaw if you will, because like the initial motivation is so ungodly selfish. It's like, why? Of course, it just sounds ridiculous. Like, I keep the bolding in mind here. I made these stories once, and I want to make them come to life. I don't blame anyone else for thinking that's extremely selfish. I really don't. But at the same time, though, it wouldn't just be about me. As I explained in the Matt Ramble videos, user tried to tell me, do you want me to make the maps for you first so then you can put your stories out there? And I declined it, even though that is exactly what I wanted. Because then the second point after that is, I want my stories to come to life at the same time everyone else's stories will come to light. If there are other people who want to use these assets in other ways, sure. I've made a story once where, and this is actually true, yeah, crazy. I've made a story once where everyone gets like this one dream at the same time, and and at one point the main characters go on an investigation to Salt Spray Rig, and like then an alien race abducts the Inklings at some point during that. It's way more complicated than it sounds, but like, sure, Salt Spray Rig's out in the middle of nowhere, so it wouldn't really have caught much attention until it hit Inkopolis, where the stakes start rising a lot more. But someone else might want to use Salt Spray Rig, let's just say again. Someone else might want to use Salt Spray Rig because they were mad at tower control in the first game, or they're like, oh my god, I don't like right side peeking, can we fix the stage? Can I maybe spawn in the middle of the... oh, what the hell was it? Can I spawn in the middle of those boxes? Maybe? Please? Or maybe, like, they're climbing up Salt Spray Rig, and they want to reach one of the platforms, or, I don't know, maybe... like, these aren't things that happened. Only the dream thing is actually written down and in a script. But, like, the first motivation that I tell people is, I made these stories once, and I can't tell them without these things. So, again, I don't blame you if you think that's selfish. Someone tried to tell me it's not. But I don't blame you if there is a shred of it that does think you're selfish. That does think I'm selfish, sorry. But, again, I don't want to boast. There was one instance of that got me kind of annoyed, actually. Because, and like, it's just grown into something worse. Where I don't... all I ever saw was this one model being promoted on my feed when I was friends with this person. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of artwork every single day on my Steam activity. Hundreds of pieces of artwork of just this one model that no one else had access to. and it was really, really, really annoying. Like, bad annoying. Like, legitimately, I couldn't go a day without seeing this one model. I literally couldn't, and it really, really bothered me. I don't want to distribute these updates. I don't want to distribute these updates to the game to other people if it is pointless. If what I'm doing is pointless. If when I give these models to people that they're just going to hog it and keep it to themselves.